Hello, everyone. I would like to first thank the Georgia Commission on Women for inviting me to take part in this important summit. I'm Gül İnanç, currently a visiting professor at Guilford College, North Carolina, and I'm also the founder of an initiative called Opening Universities for Refugees. I'm a new Georgian, addressing you from my home in Savannah, where I have recently moved after living 11 years in Singapore. The next 30 minutes, I will be talking about the wellness of our societies and the importance of intercultural dialogue towards achieving and maintaining this wellness. I will be delivering my presentation in two parts. In the first part, I will be talking about the concepts of culture, few other concepts, ethnocentrism, cultural relativism, very briefly. And then I will introduce you the differences of multicultural and intercultural societies and how the wellness of our societies depends on the active dialogue. And in the second part of my presentation, I will again briefly share the work I have been doing globally as well as in the United States, and you will connect the dots between two parts. Let's start with the definition of culture before talking about multiculturalism and interculturalism. Arts, music, painting, sculpture, architecture, temples, houses, bridges, spaces like villages, cities, landscapes that we share within a society means culture. Let's continue with the definition. Knowledge, language, crafts, schools people attend, manners, how people eat, drink, how people entertain, games that children play, again, shared by within society means culture. Relationships between a mother and a child, a man and a woman, and a husband and a wife. Values, again, shared by society. What is good, what is bad, what is funny, and the gods we believe in, part of our culture. And culture is an important part of our identities, both individual and social identities. Culture is also very similar to an iceberg, as you can see in my presentation. It has some aspects that are visible and many others that can only be suspected, guessed, and learned as you grow to understand the cultures. Again, like an iceberg, the visible part of culture is only a small part of a much larger whole. While some features of it are immediately seen, for others, you may have to dig deeper. Now after this brief introduction, let's focus on our societies. At first sight, the terms multicultural society and intercultural society seem to be similar, but there are very distinct differences between them. Multicultural society can be defined as different cultures, national, ethnic, religious groups, all living within the same territory, but not necessarily coming into contact with each other. Minorities may be tolerated passively, but not accepted or valued. Even in cases where there are legal rights designed to stop discrimination, and the law may be not to be enforced uniformly. Intercultural society, on the other hand, is where different cultures, national, ethnic, religious groups living together within a territory maintain open relations of interaction, exchange, and mutual recognition of their own respective values. We're talking then about a process of building respect and the maintenance of equitable relations where everyone has the same importance, where there are no superiors or inferiors, better or worse people. Now, let me wear my historian hat and take you to a fast journey into the past. Starting from the 18th century, all throughout 19th century, throughout 20th century, even in the 21st century, we see the creation of nation states. But mostly on the 18th and the 19th century and the early 20th century, our societies were defined as homogeneous. Sameness and uniformity were kind of expected. The development of multicultural societies became marked following the end of Second World War. And as the Cold War ideological divide grew, great movements of people took place within and around Soviet Union's sphere of influence. And during the 50s and 60s, two main types of migration occurred. The majority of the immigrants were from colonies and the ex-colonies, wanting to return to the mother country or center of the former empire. Secondly, the more industrialized countries began to recruit people from other countries for the labor. The formation of multicultural societies for different reasons has been continuing till today. Yet we still cannot say that multiculturalism later led to interculturalism. We're still assuming that assimilation is better than integration, or we use the concepts like tolerance rather than respect when we talk about our differences. When people move, cultures move as well. When people move to new places, new cultural identifications occur, and people start to experience an interculturality within themselves. This process of recreation of our cultural identities needs acknowledgement. It needs to be understood, respected, and definitely our experiences need to be safely shared for safe integration. As people adapt to new country settings, societies also need to adapt to its new fabric. So societies change constantly. If we were begin to creating intercultural realities, we have much to do in challenging our personal attitudes and the systems of control and power which result in equality. We need to understand that dialogue between cultures requires a great deal of time and experience. The development of intercultural approaches will depend not only on people's openness, but also on institutions which have to implement a whole series of measures to facilitate the process. It is necessary to pass through certain stages, namely, accepting that everyone is on the same level, accepting equality of rights, and this will break the pattern of us and them, getting to know each other better, engaging in discussion about our cultures by doing things together. While exchanging viewpoints, experiencing each other's cultures and ideas and identities, we need to be accepting mutual criticism, reaching agreements, and taking decisions together, like agree to disagree. It's okay. Yet, it's not easy. Let's go over a few more concepts that will help us to navigate this process better. Our judgments, evaluations, and justifications are influenced strongly by our ethnocentrism. This means that we all believe our response to the world, our culture, is the right one. And other ones are just somehow not normal. We feel that our values and ways of living are universal and the correct ones for all people. The others are just too naive or different to understand this obvious path. To avoid judging the cultural practices of groups that are different than ours, we can use the cultural relativism approach. Cultural relativism refers not to judging a culture to our own standards of what is right or wrong, strange or normal. Instead, we should try to understand cultural practices of other groups in its own cultural context. For example, instead of thinking fried crickets are disgusting, how one can eat a fried grasshopper, one should instead ask, why do some cultures eat fried insects? You may learn that fried insects or grasshoppers are full of protein, And in Mexico, it's a famous regional cuisine and have been eaten for thousands of years as a healthy food source. And more in Europe, specifically Northern European countries, are converting to eating insects rather than cows or sheep for the global warming and to fight against the climate change. Some people worry that the concept of culture can also be abused and misinterpreted. If one culture behaves one way, does that mean all cultures can behave that way as well? For example, many countries and international organizations oppose the act of whaling, the fishing of whales, for environmental reasons. These environmental organizations say that there are not many whales left and such fishing practices should be stopped. However, other countries argue that the whaling is a cultural practice that has been around for thousands of years. Because it may be part of a country's oceanic culture, this country may say that such a cultural practice should not be opposed based on cultural differences. And say an inland country that does not understand this. I'm against whaling, but my being against this is I'm a vegetarian. I'm also against animals to die, as well as I am also a big advocate of animal rights. But who gets to define what a moral cultural behavior is? Is whaling immoral? To whom? Who decides on that? Dialogue is the answer. Now, I'll talk a little bit about my work. So we're in part 2. I'm one of those privileged academics who have been teaching to students with asylum seeker and refugee backgrounds from all around the world, in urban and in camp settings in Southeast Asia and lately in Africa since 2016. In the regions like Southeast Asia specifically, where most of the refugees are hosted at the countries which do not recognize 1951 Geneva Convention on Forced Displacement, civil society organizations play a major role in the rights-based protection of the displaced communities, and education stands at the center of it. Opening Universities for Refugees was founded in 2015 in Singapore to bring together institutions which offer or are willing to offer higher education courses or diploma programs to the displaced youth. Early steps of this effort took the form of organizing participant-led, action-oriented workshops we called 3C Forum, and C standing for Collaborate, Create, and Change. This 3 boxes sitting on top of each other, and you see a tree growing from there. It's the logo of Opening Universities for Refugees, and also it represents 3C Forum: Collaborate, Create, and Change. The 3C Forum, we used unconference methodology, and the principal characteristic of the method was to having one single agenda, in this case, inclusive higher education, and the themes were defined by the participants. And we put at the center of this decision refugee communities and introduced them to institutions and multi-stakeholders who have the power as well as the sources to offer this education opportunities. So we offered them a kind of intercultural dialogue, and we organized 3C Forum since 2016, 7 different country settings from Indonesia, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand, lately Kurdistan region of Iraq, United Kingdom, and we will be hosting the 8th one this November in Thailand, in Bangkok, again bringing displaced youth with the relevant stakeholders in that country setting. And we came up with lots of action plans. And again, these action plans changed within a different country settings. But as I said, education is more than a hope for a refugee student. it is part of their protection as well. Since I moved to the United States, as I said, it's very recent, I have been closely working with an initiative called Every Campus a Refugee, ECAR. Please search and do visit their website to learn more about their amazing work. Together with ECAR, we co-designed a specific course on refugee resettlement in the United States and have been partnering with the National Association of System Heads, NASH, and its Refugee Resettlement Initiative to offer training, both online and on-site, to higher education champions of refugee resettlement and integration. This training builds capacity of champions in higher education to develop ecosystems of support for the newcomers through their integration in our society and becoming new Americans. Interested higher education institutions through NASH membership can receive this training. We already started, Western Kentucky University, Maine System, Virginia Tech, Franklin and Marshall received these trainings, and the list is very long for 2024 as well. Before I end up my presentation, I would like to ask you all a question. Is your workspace, your community, an intercultural one? Will you be interested in actively getting involved in welcoming the newcomers to your community, either via your business or your church or your overall community, or perhaps individually? Would you be interested in becoming a leader working for the wellness of your society through advocating intercultural dialogue? Now, we, ECAR and our, are offering new certificate partnership, this time partnering with Guilford College, North Carolina. And this certificate will engage participants in learning about forced displacement. Who's a refugee? What is different than a migrant? Who's immigrant? What is America's history in resettlement? How policies has changed? What are the numbers and quotas when it comes to resettlement? What is local integration? How it differs from assimilation? We're planning to reach out to communities and offer this to work, as I said, intercultural dialogue through the resettlement and integration process. The certificate also seeks to respond in effective and principled and nimble ways to current moment of forced migration. The program will offer over the course of 3 days, and the first delivery will be in person in August 11 and 13 at Guilford College campus in Greensboro, North Carolina. Please visit the website of ECAR and Guilford College for registration. And I'm wrapping up right now. Please do get in touch with me directly. If you have any questions or comments on my presentation, I put my email address there and I will be delighted to receive your email. I'm wishing you an exciting summit experience. Thank you.